Anybody that has an opinion or anybody that says anything about this quarterback situation that's going on in Cleveland, they get the ultimate interview on all these Cleveland outlets and all these Cleveland media channels and all these Cleveland insiders. And if you say anything about the quarterback situation that's going on between Deshaun Watson and Shedeur Sanders, you're going to get yourself an immediate reaction. And this is what Cleveland Brown quarterback Kellen Mond did to get some attention because he's over in the UCFL playing football. And he said some things and he weighed in on the Deshaun Watson and Shedeur Sanders alleged quarterback competition. And we're going to get right off into it right after this.
Let me put you on game. These other podcasts out here talking that shit, but ain't repping the same. Nah, it's my bro K-Step, chopping up topics for your optics. From politics to your cockpits. Tune in, you gotta watch this. Exclusive material for your radio stereo, pumping high definition. Stop what you doing and listen. We smashing all competition. You better jump on this wave. Somebody pass me a mic, man. I got something to say.
Well, guys, you know I got something to say, man. It's more fake news going around. It's more fake accusations out there. It's people just now getting attention, and it's by way of Shedeur Sanders. Anything that you say that has anything negative to say about Shedeur Sanders, the Cleveland media is going to pick it up and going to reach out to you, and you're going to get yourself an interview. So today on UCSS, and G. Bush wasn't even there. So that's why what Kellen Mond was saying, Adam the Bull and Jason Lloyd, they loved it because there was no pushback. If G. Bush was there, there'd have been a lot of pushback. But G. Bush wasn't in the building, and Kellen Mond was reckless, and Adam the Bull and Jason Lloyd was reckless too. So Jason Lloyd and Adam the Bull continuously hating on Shedeur Sanders with all this fake news, talking about if he was to get traded, Shedeur wouldn't have no trade value. Just making up anything. That's their opinions. They're two haters that dislike Shedeur Sanders. Now Cleveland Brown quarterback Kellen Mond was drafted into the league, played with my Minnesota Vikings, couldn't do nothing, barely got on the field. And it seems like these ex-players and these ex-quarterbacks always hating on future quarterbacks. So Kellen Mond had a lot to say on UCSS. And I'm going to play this clip. And I want y'all to listen to what Kellen Mond said. Basically, he's agreeing with Mary Kay Cabot and Tony Grossi. But Bull and Jason Lloyd are still hating on Shedeur Sanders with all this fake news. Let's take a listen to what Kellen Mond had to say.
Kellen Mond's with us? All right, there we go. Kellen Mond. Hey, Kellen, how you doing? Thanks for joining us.
I've been good. Thanks for having me. I know it's a short notice, but I'm glad I was able to get on.
Yeah, we appreciate it. You've known Mike for a while, right?
I was surprised, Kellen, you remembered my name. What's up, man? Long time no see. How you been?
Yeah. I remember the name. I had to look you up because I'm like, dude, I think I know him. And then when I looked it up, I was like, oh yeah,
goes to show they reached out to Kellen Mond after he put his tweet out there.
First got to College Station. Yeah.
The 2018 season. We'll get into the tweet yesterday, but I was telling the guys that you've been in more quarterback battles than maybe anybody. I mean, every year at A&M it was Kellen versus somebody, whether it was Nick, whether it was Zach. So you even put in the tweet that there's no such thing as a true quarterback battle, or at least very rarely. In your opinion, as someone who's been through quarterback battles in the past, not just in college, but even in the NFL, fighting in practice squads and all that, why don't you think it's ever truly an actual competition as opposed to our perception of it from the outside looking in?
Yeah.
More fake news.
Yeah, well, I think one, just to clarify, I think in college it is different. Now with guys getting paid, obviously that wasn't necessarily me, getting paid with NIL back when I was in college, but that's probably a whole different landscape. But I think in the NFL, when you bring in where guys are drafted and certain money that guys are being paid, the goal is to win in the NFL, but there's also a goal of making sure you get a return on your investment. And, it's part of the reason why teams are willing to stick with quarterbacks or even just players in general to try and see if maybe there's a way we can make sure that we get a return on our investment. And then you also get to say it's part of that pride thing that, we were the people who drafted this person, or we paid this person, and we were able to get him to a high level where that return on investment was a good investment.
Kellen, when it comes to Deshaun and Shedeur, frankly, I don't think they have a very good choice between either one of them. I think they're both bad choices. That's just me personally. I don't think there's a right answer here. If I have to pick between them, I say Shedeur because I see no path with Deshaun. I've said before, under no circumstance am I giving him another contract. So tell me, I hear you what you're saying, like you play the best guy, I get that. But the Browns have been looking for a quarterback for generations, and they're still going to be looking for one again next year.
More fake news.
So that's where I have a hard time wrapping my head around. Why would you go back to Deshaun? I don't see a future there at all under any circumstance.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you ask Deshaun himself that if he played since he's been in Cleveland up to the level that he would want, he would say no the same way I would say no as well. But you can also recognize that he's still a quarterback on the roster, and we'll see who is the best fit. But he's the most veteran. He's been on a huge contract. In the past, he's shown the greatest potential, and not even necessarily potential, but the greatest and high-level quarterbacking than any quarterback on that roster. For him to go in 2020, obviously it's more than a decade ago. 33 touchdowns, I think 7 interceptions, almost 5,000 yards, and over 70% completion percentage. I mean, those are like MVP caliber numbers. So he's done it in the past, and maybe it's within him. And then I also said in the post, I think Deshaun has done a lot of work to improve on his fundamentals, certain balance stuff that I've seen throughout videos throughout the offseason. I messaged him about it, and then I've seen it in practice. And so, again, I'm not saying Deshaun is going to go out there and play great in the season. That's up for Deshaun, the Browns, everyone to create a system around him, whatever that looks like. But also, the other point, too, where you mentioned in Shedeur, I don't necessarily look at it as a Deshaun-Shedeur thing. I think Shedeur, who did some good things during the regular season, he's also competing against a guy who Andrew Berry drafted above him. Mm-hmm. And for anybody who knows what dealing with really competing against a guy who was drafted by that specific team, I saw it firsthand. And, Mike Woods was a guy in 2022 who a lot of people thought should be on the field, but he couldn't get in the rotation because of where he was drafted. So I think if we can do a good job at taking off what the names are, Deshaun, Shedeur, Dylan Gabriel, take off the names, and I think you will see that you have a guy who's been paid a lot of money. He's played at an MVP caliber, at MVP caliber in the past. I think he will end up being a starter unless he goes out and plays absolutely horrible, whatever that looks like throughout camp. And then you have 2 guys who were in the same draft class, one guy who played better in the preseason, one guy who played better in the regular season, and just where you're drafted matters. And then obviously you have, I think, a 6th rounder from this past year.
Now, you heard what he had to say, man. Some of that stuff, he contradicted himself. He basically contradicted himself. And the reason why he contradicted himself, because he said, you take the names off of it and let them go out and compete, then you'll see what you got. Take the names off of it, because everybody's tying Shedeur because his last name is Sanders, and that's what y'all basing him off of. But you take the names off of it. Then he went on to say Deshaun Watson played at an MVP caliber. That's when he was in Houston. That's how he got the fully guaranteed contract in the worst trade ever. And they paid him all that money. Then he brought in the factors about return on your investment. And then he talks about Deshaun Watson is putting in the work with the great footwork and things like that. Shedeur Sanders is putting in the work too. Then he also stated that Shedeur is competing against Dylan Gabriel, somebody that was drafted ahead of him. But it's not about that. It's about the best available and the best quarterback available, regardless of where you drafted. Tom Brady was drafted in the 6th round, and he's the GOAT, right? So it's about your potential. We saw what Dylan Gabriel brought to the table last year. We saw what Shedeur Sanders did in the last 7 games. Because you just said that. He did some great things and some things he needs to work on. But you contradicted yourself because you said Deshaun Watson is putting in the work with Quincy Avery. Shedeur Sanders is putting in the work too. So don't discredit Shedeur Sanders. And you're telling me that it's where you drafted at, so Shedeur and Dylan are going to be competing against each other for the quarterback 2 position. I thought it was about who was the better quarterback. And you know, hands down, that Shedeur is better than Dylan Gabriel. And the crazy thing about it is, he totally agrees with what Mary Kay and Tony Grossi said. Now let's go over this tweet. He says, anyone who's been in the NFL knows quarterback 1 competition isn't really a thing. Very rare. It's about choosing a guy who you believe gives you the best chance to win and maximize his reps, especially when the money plays a factor. At Mary Kay has been right all along. In my opinion, she got inside sources. Wow. It's Deshaun Watson's job to lose. Compare his footwork, fundamentals, and balance when he last played in his complete 180. Still got to prove it in games, but him and Quincy Avery put in work. Shedeur Sanders been putting in work too. So Kellen Mond, you're telling me that what you saw in OTAs, just because he's throwing the ball, that his footwork has changed, did a 180. A small sample size of somebody out there just making standard throws, no defense coming at you, no rush on you, and you just letting the ball go and you hitting your receivers, and you telling me that he's made a 180 change. And then you went on to say that in the past, that was Deshaun Watson in the past, and you comparing a Deshaun Watson in the past that had an MVP caliber season in Houston that got him all this money with Cleveland, and you comparing his stats to a rookie Shedeur Sanders. Make it make sense, man. That's why I said all this is fake news, smoke and mirrors. And the crazy thing about it is, you're talking about a quarterback competition. Your man, Kevin Stefanski, started that, right? He started last year by talking about this is an open quarterback competition. That's where it stemmed from, right? So Todd Monken said, this is an open quarterback competition. Nothing can be figured out in 2 days of OTA. The fake news continues. The hating with Jason Lloyd and Adam the Bull continues. You make a tweet about Shedeur Sanders and you piggyback off of what Mary Kay or Tony Grossi said, they gonna reach out to you and get you an interview. So Kellen Mond, you said a tweet and it exploded and the Cleveland media reached out to you. That's how diabolical it is. Anything to put Shedeur Sanders in the back and put somebody in the front, or you gonna get you an interview. I see everybody in the comments section, #salute. And if you're not subscribed to the channel, do me a favor, hit the subscribe button, turn your post notifications on so you know every time Simply Ball drops another hot banger. Oh yeah, just in case I forgot. Tell a friend to tell a friend. It might not be for you, but it might be for them. And this is going to wrap up another episode of the Simply Ball Dropping Podcast. I'm your host and the man behind the mic, K-Sap. We'll catch you on the next one. Deuces.
Thanks for listening to the Simply Ball Dropping Podcast. Be sure to subscribe, like, and share on all major platforms.
That's all, folks.